Rule 10b5-1 plans are under attack. In this video, I'm going to talk about why that is, and I'm going to offer some best practices for your own executives' 10b5-1 plans. But first, let's talk about what a Rule 10b5-1 plan is. This is simply a predetermined plan to trade in company securities. Rule 10b5-1 plans are often used by executives, employees, and other company insiders to set up an affirmative defense against insider trading. The idea is that the executive enters into a plan to trade company securities at a time when they do not have any material non-public information about the company. Then, when the trades eventually occur under that Rule 10b5-1 plan, it's clear that those trades were not made on the basis of inside information because the decision to make the trades was made back at a time when the insider did not have that information. The SEC adopted Rule 10b5-1 over 20 years ago. And in that time, these plans have grown considerably in popularity. But with popularity comes scrutiny. That's right. Academics have long been very suspicious of Rule 10b5-1 plans. A recent study from researchers at Stanford, the University of Pennsylvania, and the University of Washington identifies 3 red flags that the researchers believe signify abusive or opportunistic use of Rule 10b5-1 plans. Let's talk about what those red flags are. The first is a short cooling off period. The cooling off period is the length of time that elapses from when the plan is implemented until when trades begin under the plan. And if that time period is too short, that calls into question whether the executive may have already had some information that influenced their decision to trade at the time that they entered into the plan. The second red flag is kind of a companion to the first one. This is a situation where executives enter into Rule 10b5-1 plans and then have trades commence in those plans all in the same quarter and all before earnings are announced for the quarter. The researchers' concern here is that by the time executives enter into the 10b5-1 plans, they maybe already have an idea of how earnings are going to shape up for the quarter. And so they are trying to use Rule 10b5-1 to get their trades in ahead of any impact the earnings announcement has on the company's stock price. And then the last red flag is a single trade plan. So this would be a Rule 10b5-1 plan where just one trade occurs in the plan and then the plan ends. There can be legitimate reasons why an executive might want to use a Rule 10b5-1 plan even for just a single trade, but the researchers are suspicious of it. So this study got a lot of play in the media. And then on top of that, there were some trades by some pharmaceutical executives that were made under Rule 10b5-1 plans that were somewhat questionable. So all of that attracted the attention of Congress, and it attracted the attention of some senators in particular. Those senators wrote a letter to the SEC urging the commission to review and reform its policies for Rule 10b5-1 plans. So now, this is on the SEC's agenda. It's actually on the SEC's short-term agenda. And the SEC tasked its Investor Advisory Committee with doing some research on this and making some recommendations as to how the commission might reform Rule 10b5-1. Those recommendations have been made, so we fully expect to see some rulemaking from the SEC in this area. But let's talk about some best practices that you might implement now to get ahead of that rulemaking. I'm going to go through several ideas, and I'm also going to present some data on the percentage of companies that have already implemented these ideas. That data is from the NASPP's 2020 Stock Plan Administration Survey, which is co-sponsored by Deloitte Consulting. Let's start with something easy. My first best practice is to require that 10b5-1 plans be implemented in open window periods. This is a great way to signify that the individuals implementing those plans do not have material non-public information at the time that they enter into the plan. And 90% of companies already require this. My second best practice is to impose a required cooling off period. This is a specified period of time that has to elapse before trades can commence under the plan. 79% of companies already require a cooling off period. But this is also an investor advisory committee recommendation, and what the committee recommends is that the SEC require a 4-month cooling off period. Most companies that have a required cooling off period, that period's only 1 to 3 months long. So even if you already have a required cooling off period, you may need to lengthen that period by a little bit. My third recommendation is to limit or prohibit the use of multiple 10b5-1 plans. So this would be a situation where an executive has 2 or more 10b5-1 plans that are overlapping. They're in operation at the same time, and the trades that are occurring under the plans over the same time period. This is problematic for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is how hard it is to administer all of those plans. 67% of companies already prohibit this. Along with that, I also think that it is a good idea to prohibit trading outside of Rule 10b5-1 plans while the plans are in operation. That's also problematic for really the same reasons that it is problematic to have multiple 10b5-1 plans in operation at the same time. This is actually arguably more problematic because here the trades are completely unpredictable. 49% of companies already prohibit this. Now we're going to get into some areas of other ideas that I think are good ones, but that we haven't seen quite as much uptake on. The first is to place some restrictions around executives' ability to modify their 10b5-1 plans and to terminate those plans early. 46% of companies prohibit modifications, 30% of companies prohibit early termination. Along with that, I also think it is a good idea to set a maximum length that 10b5-1 periods can be implemented for. If you allow executives to implement 10b5-1 plans that extend out several years into the future or indefinitely, that is likely to result in a lot of early terminations of plans. And those early terminations are almost always viewed with suspicion. By setting a more reasonable limit on how long plans can last, you are likely to eliminate or mitigate at least some of that early termination behavior. 44% of companies already have a maximum plan length, and interestingly, 33% of companies impose a minimum plan length. And then my last best practice is to disclose when your executives are using 10b5-1 plans. This is also a recommendation of the Investor Advisory Committee. And so I fully expect that we're going to see the SEC require some disclosure in the future. But for now, when executives are entering into 10b5-1 plans, you could report that using a press release or on a Form 8K. And when trades occur under 10b5-1 plans, I think it is a great idea to footnote that on the Form 4 that you use to report those trades. So that is my update on Rule 10b5-1 plans. We have been following the developments in this area very closely in the NASBP blog, and we've included a link to some of those blogs with this video on YouTube. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're notified when we post new videos. Heck, you know what? Even if you didn't enjoy it, subscribe anyway. Maybe you'll like the next one. Thanks for watching.